The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace with a terrible sound. Park grabbed his seat as red warning lights filled the cockpit. Alarms screamed at him from every direction. The plasma conduit had failed. The backup systems were dying. His ship, the steadfast mule, was falling apart around him. Worked fast. His hands moved across the controls as he tried to save what he could. The engines coughed and sputtered. He needed to land somewhere, anywhere, before the whole ship went dark. Through the viewport, he saw a small moon orbiting a massive gas giant. His scanners showed breathable air and low radiation. It would have to do. Aimed the dying shuttle toward the surface and prayed to whatever gods might be listening. The landing was rough. The shuttle hit the ground hard, bounced twice, and finally came to rest in a field of purple grass. Smoke poured from the engine compartment. Sat in silence for a long moment, just breathing. He was alive. That was something. He climbed out of the shuttle and looked around. The moon was strange but beautiful. Tall fungal trees rose toward the orange sky. The purple grass swayed in a gentle wind. Small creatures that looked like flying jellyfish floated between the giant mushroom caps above. Activated his emergency beacon. The signal would reach the coalition fleet eventually. Someone would come for him. He just had to wait and try to fix what he could. He walked around the shuttle, checking the damage. It was bad. The plasma conduit array had completely failed. Several power couplings were burned out. The hull had cracks in 3 places. Even with his tools and skills, the repairs would take many hours. Opened the maintenance panel and got to work. He was an engineer, one of the best in the cargo fleet. He had fixed ships in worse condition than this. Maybe, probably. He tried not to think about it too hard. The first few hours passed slowly. Crawled under the shuttle, rewiring damaged systems and replacing burned components. His uniform became covered in grease and coolant. Sweat dripped down his face in the humid air. But slowly, very slowly, the ship began to come back to life. He was deep under the hull, working on a stubborn power coupling when he heard the sound. Rustling in the purple grass. Something was moving toward him. Froze. His scanner had shown no large predators in this area, but scanners could be wrong. Scanners were often wrong when it really mattered. He slowly reached for the small plasma pistol at his belt. His fingers touched the handle. He waited. 3 shapes emerged from the edge of the fungal forest. His blood went cold. He knew what they were. Everyone in the galaxy knew what they were. The most dangerous predators in known space. Their home world was a nightmare of high gravity, toxic air, and constant violence. They had claws that could tear through ship armor, jaws that could crush titanium. They were killers, pure and simple. But these 3 were small. Blinked, confused. They barely reached his waist. Their scales were soft blue instead of the hard black of adults. Their eyes were large and curious, not cold and calculating. They moved with clumsy energy, bumping into each other as they approached. Cubs, they were cubs, children. The largest cub stopped a few meters away. It tilted its head and made a chittering sound. Its translator struggled with the young voice, then produced broken words. What doing, metal thing? Looked at the tools in his hands. He looked at the shuttle above him. He looked at the 3 young predators watching him with obvious fascination. I am fixing my ship, he said slowly. It is broken. The cubs moved closer. They seemed to have no fear of him at all. Suppose that made sense. Even as children, they were apex predators. What did they have to fear from a soft, clawless human? The second cub, smaller than the first, reached out and touched one of his tools. The cub picked it up, turned it over in its clawed hands, and made a curious clicking sound. Careful, said, that is delicate. The third cub, the smallest of the 3, had already crawled under the shuttle beside him. She was looking at the exposed wiring with intense interest. Her neck frills, which knew could display threat colors in adults, were glowing with soft bioluminescence instead. Light, realized aloud. You can make light. The small cub seemed pleased. She angled her glowing frills toward the dark space where had been working. Suddenly, he could see everything clearly. Did not know what to do. His training had been clear about stay away from them. Do not engage. They were dangerous, unpredictable, violent. The coalition maintained careful diplomatic relations with their species, but individual humans were advised to avoid contact. These were not adults, though. These were children. Curious, playful children who seemed genuinely interested in what he was doing. Where were their parents? Their pack traveled in hunting groups. These cubs should not be alone. The largest cub chittered again. Fix, how? Against his better judgment, found himself answering. This wire connects to the power system. It is burned. I need to replace it with a new one. All three cubs leaned in to watch. Their attention was absolute, focused. They watched his every movement like it was the most important thing in the universe. Worked while they watched. He explained what he was doing, mostly to fill the silence. The cubs listened. They asked questions, broken and simple through the translator, but genuine. They wanted to understand. An hour passed. Then two. The cubs did not leave. If anything, they became more engaged. The second cub started handing tools before he could reach for them, somehow knowing which one he would need next. The small female kept providing light wherever he needed it. Even the largest cub helped, holding wires steady with surprising gentleness. Found himself smiling. It was absurd. He was stranded on an alien moon, working on a broken shuttle, being assisted by the cubs of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. His would never believe this. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. Paused his work and looked at his strange helpers. They looked back at him with those large, curious eyes. "Your pack," he said. "Your family, where are they?" The largest cub pointed toward the deep forest. "Hunting, we, too small, must wait." So they had been left behind while the adults hunted. Cubs too young to join, old enough to be left alone. They had probably seen his shuttle crash and come to investigate. Nodded slowly. "They will return soon." "Yes," the cub agreed, "soon." He should be afraid. When the adult returned and found a human near their young, they might kill him. That was the logical outcome. That was what his training said would happen. But looking at the three cubs, covered in grease from helping him, eyes still bright with curiosity and excitement, found that he was not afraid. He was interested to see what would happen next. The night passed without danger. The adult did not return from their hunt, and the three cubs stayed near Shuttle. They slept in a pile near the landing gear, their soft blue scales rising and falling with each breath. Watched them from inside the ship, amazed at how peaceful they looked. When morning came, the cubs woke quickly. They stretched their limbs and shook their bodies like wet dogs. The largest cub immediately walked to where was eating his breakfast ration bar. "More fixing today?" the cub asked through the translator. Nodded. "Yes, much more fixing. The damage is serious." The cub's eyes brightened. "We help." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. Opened his mouth to refuse, to explain that this was dangerous technical work, that they could get hurt, that they should stay back and watch from a safe distance. Then he remembered how helpful they had been yesterday. He closed his mouth. "Okay," he said instead, "you can help." The cubs made excited chittering sounds. They gathered around him as he finished eating, practically vibrating with energy. Had never seen predators so eager to learn about plasma conduits. He started with the basics. He showed them his tools, explaining what each one did. The cubs passed them around, feeling the weight and shape of each device. They asked questions constantly. "Why is this one shaped like that? What does this button do? Why does this part get hot?" Answered every question. He found that teaching them was actually helpful. It forced him to think clearly about each step of the repair process. The cubs were excellent students. They remembered everything he told them and never made the same mistake twice. The second cub had learned to identify all the basic tools by name. The small female could read the simple displays on diagnostic equipment. The largest cub had started to understand the basic flow of power through the ship systems. Was impressed. These were not stupid creatures. Their minds were sharp and quick. They learned faster than most human students he had trained. The real work began after that. Needed to replace the entire plasma conduit array. This was a big job, normally requiring a team of 3 or 4 trained engineers. He had only himself and 3 alien children who had never seen the inside of a starship before today. It would have to be enough. He crawled under the shuttle and started removing the damaged conduits. The cubs followed him, squeezing into spaces that were too small for adult. Their smaller bodies were actually an advantage here. They could reach places that could not. "Hand me the number 4 coupling," said. The second cub, who had started calling Bora in his head because he needed names for them, immediately grabbed the correct part. She did not hesitate or search through the tool bag. She simply knew which one he meant. "Thank you, Bora," said without thinking. The cub tilted her head. "Bora." Paused. "Sorry, I cannot say your real name. My mouth cannot make those sounds. I gave you a human name in my head. Bora. It means purple like the grass here." Bora seemed pleased by this. She clicked her claws together happily. "Bora I like." The largest cub pushed forward. "Me, name for me." Smiled. "It means great and brave." Puffed up with pride. His neck frills spread slightly, showing off soft colors. "Yes, good name." The smallest cub was already waiting. Her bioluminescent frills glowed with anticipation. Said, "It means kindness and warmth like your light." Made a soft purring sound that had never heard from a before. It sounded almost like a cat. She crawled closer to him and helped angle her light toward his work. They continued through the morning, worked on the main repairs while the cubs assisted in ways that kept surprising him, had incredible strength even for his small size. He could hold heavy components in place without any sign of effort. Bora had developed an almost magical ability to predict what would need next, and provided perfect lighting for every task, adjusting the brightness and angle without being asked. Around midday, they hit a problem. The plasma conduit needed to follow a specific path through the ship systems. The standard routing was badly damaged. Would need to find a new path, one that avoided all the broken sections. He stared at the schematic on his, trying to figure out a solution. "Here," said suddenly. She pointed at the schematic with one small claw. "Go this way." Looked at where she was pointing. It was a completely non-standard routing. The plasma would flow through sections normally used for secondary power. It broke about 15 different engineering guidelines. It would also work perfectly. Ran the numbers in his head. Its routing was shorter than the standard path. It used fewer connection points. The plasma would flow more smoothly with less resistance. It was, objectively, a better design. He said slowly, "How did you think of this?" The small cub tilted her head. "I see the flow like water. It wants to go the easy way. This is the easy way." Stared at her. She had been exposed to starship engineering for less than 1 day. In that time, she had developed an intuitive understanding of plasma dynamics that some human engineers never achieved. Were hunters. Their brains were designed to track prey, predict movements, find the fastest path to their target. Was using those same instincts for engineering. She saw the plasma as prey, and she found the best path to catch it. "You are amazing," told her honestly. "This is brilliant work." Frills glowed brighter with pride. They implemented her design over the next few hours, held the heavy conduit sections while welded them in place. Bora handed him tools and components in perfect order, guided the work with her light and her strange intuition. By late afternoon, the new plasma routing was complete. Ran a diagnostic test, expecting problems. There were none. The system worked better than it had when the shuttle was brand new. "I do not believe this," muttered, reading the results. 8% more efficient, 8%. "Good?" asked. "Very good, better than good." Looked at his 3 students with new respect. "Your people have been warriors for thousands of years. Has anyone ever tried teaching you engineering?" The cubs looked at each other. "No," said. "Cubs learn to hunt, only hunt, that is the way." "That is a waste," said firmly. "You have incredible minds, all 3 of you. You should not be limited to hunting." The cubs did not respond to that. They seemed confused by the idea. Their entire culture was built around the hunt. The idea that they could be anything else had never occurred to them. Decided not to push the point. There were still repairs to complete. But as they worked through the rest of the afternoon, he could not stop thinking about it. They were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They were kept at arm's length by every other civilization. People saw them only as predators, as threats, as monsters. No one had ever tried to see what else they could be. The sun began to set again. The work was going well. At this pace, might have the shuttle flying before his rescue arrived. Then suddenly went still. His body tensed. His soft blue scales seemed to harden slightly. "Pack returns," he said quietly. His heart began to beat faster. The adult were coming. The real predators. The ones with razor claws and crushing jaws and absolutely no reason to let a human live. He looked at the cubs, covered in grease and coolant, exhausted from a day of hard work. He looked at the forest, where shadows were beginning to move between the fungal trees. The moment of truth was coming, stood very still as the adult emerged from the forest. There were 7 of them, each one massive and terrifying. Their scales were hard black from years of hunting. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dying light of sunset. They moved with the silent grace of perfect predators. The cubs ran toward them, chittering excitedly, watched as Bora and were surrounded by the adults. The pack sniffed them, touched them, examined them for injuries. Normal parental behavior supposed. Even apex predators cared for their young. Then the adults noticed him. Every head turned in his direction. 14 glowing eyes fixed on his small human form. Felt like a mouse being watched by a circle of cats. Very large, very hungry cats with very sharp claws. The pack leader stepped forward. She was the largest had ever seen, nearly 8 feet tall. Her scales were darker than the others, almost pure black. A long scar ran across her face, crossing one eye. That eye still worked, though. It stared at with cold intelligence. She walked toward him slowly. Each step made the ground vibrate slightly, forced himself not to run. Running from a predator was the worst thing you could do. Running triggered the chase instinct. The pack leader stopped 2 meters away, close enough to kill him in half a second if she wanted. "Human," she said. Her translator produced the word clearly. Adult had better translators than cubs. "Explain." His mouth was dry. "My ship crashed here. The plasma conduits failed. I have been repairing the damage. Your cubs found me and they helped." Helped, the word was flat, suspicious. "Yes," pointed at the shuttle behind him. "They assisted with the repairs. They were very useful." The pack leader's eye moved to the cubs. They were bouncing with excitement, still trying to tell the adults about their adventure. The other listened with what looked like confusion. Cubs helping a human fix a machine. That was not normal behavior. "Show me," the pack leader said. "Blink to watch. Show me what you did, what they learned." It was not a request. Nodded quickly and walked back to the shuttle. The pack leader followed. The other adults stayed back, watching, ready to attack if anything went wrong. Opened the maintenance panel and showed the pack leader the repairs. He pointed out the new plasma routing that had designed. He explained how it held the heavy components. He described how Bora had organized the tools and anticipated his needs. The pack leader listened in silence. Her face showed no emotion. When finished, she stared at the plasma routing for a long moment. "This is not standard," she said finally. "No, created it. She saw a better way to route the plasma." "A cub designed this." "Yes." The pack leader turned to look at. The small cub stood straight, trying to look confident despite her nervousness. Her bioluminescent frills glowed softly. "Explain your thinking," the pack leader ordered. Stepped forward, her voice was small but clear. "The plasma is like prey, it wants to move, it wants to flow. The old path made it fight, my path lets it run free, faster, stronger." The pack leader was silent for a long time. The other adults shifted restlessly. No one knew what she was thinking. Then she did something that would remember for the rest of his life. She lowered her head. It was not a large movement, just a slight bow, a dip of her massive skull, but knew enough about culture to understand what it meant. It was a gesture of respect, an acknowledgement of skill and worth. The pack leader was bowing to a cub. "You have the mind of a true hunter," the pack leader said. "You found the path that others could not see. That is a great gift." Frills blazed with color. She was practically glowing with pride. The pack leader turned back to, "You taught our cubs." "I showed them what I was doing. They taught themselves mostly. They are very fast learners." "Cubs are born to learn, it is how we survive." The pack leader paused. "But we teach them only to hunt. We teach them to kill and eat and fight. We do not teach them this." She gestured at the shuttle, at the tools, at the complex machinery. "Perhaps that is a mistake," she continued quietly. "Perhaps we have been too narrow in our thinking." Did not know what to say. He had never expected this. He had expected death, or at least hostility. Instead, the pack leader seemed genuinely thoughtful. "What is your name, human?" she asked. "Park. I am an engineer with the Coalition cargo fleet." I lead this hunting pack." She looked at the cubs again. "My children speak highly of you. They say you were patient, kind, that you treated them as students, not as threats." "They are children," said simply. "All children deserve patience and kindness." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Not all species feel that way about cubs. Many would have killed them on sight, fearing what they would become." "That would have been wrong." "Yes, it would have been." The pack leader studied him with new interest. "You are unusual for a human, Park." "I am just an engineer. I fix things. That is all I know how to do." "You fix more than machines." Glanced at the cubs, who were now showing the other adults the tools they had learned to use. "You have shown my cubs that they can be more than hunters. That is a valuable gift." The other adults were examining the shuttle now. They touched the repairs with careful claws, studying the work. One of them, a male with bright yellow eyes, pointed its plasma routing. "This design is superior," he said. "Our ships use the standard routing. This is better." "Much better," another adult agreed. "The efficiency gain is significant." Nodded slowly. "Our fleet has many ships, many plasma conduits. If this design works here, it could work everywhere." Saw where this was going. "You want to use method on your own vessels." "I want more than that." The pack leader fixed him with her intense gaze. "I want you to teach us, all of us, not just the cubs. Show us what you know, engineer. Help us understand these machines the way you understand them." It was an incredible request. They were feared throughout the galaxy. They rarely asked anyone for anything. They took what they wanted by force. Yet here was their pack leader asking a stranded human for lessons in engineering. "I would be honored," said carefully, "but I am just one person. I cannot teach your entire fleet." "No, but you can teach a few, and they can teach others. That is how knowledge spreads." Showed her teeth in what now recognized as a smile. "The hunt is about more than killing, human. It is about learning, adapting, becoming better. You have shown my cubs a new kind of hunt, a hunt for understanding. I would like to join that hunt myself." Looked at the pack of deadly predators surrounding his broken shuttle. He looked at the 3 cubs who had become his students. He looked at the strange orange sky of this alien moon. Nothing about this situation was normal. Nothing about it made sense according to everything he had been taught about the. But sometimes, the things that made no sense were the most important things of all. "Then let us begin," said. "There is much work to do, and I have a lot to teach you." The pack leader nodded with satisfaction. Behind her, Bora and chittered with excitement. The lesson had just begun. 3 months had passed since rescue from the alien moon. His shuttle had been fixed, of course. The pack had helped him complete the repairs in record time. He had returned to the Coalition fleet expecting to go back to his normal life as a cargo engineer. That was not what happened. Word of his experience had spread through the fleet like fire through dry grass. A human engineer had worked with cubs. He had taught them. They had improved his designs. The pack leader herself had asked for more lessons. The Coalition High Command wanted answers. Stood in Admiral's office on Fleet Station 7. The Admiral was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded warships for 30 years. She had fought in 3 major conflicts. She was not easily impressed. She was reading his report for the 3rd time. "Let me understand this correctly," she said slowly. "A cub redesigned your plasma routing system, and her design was better than standard Coalition engineering." "Yes, Admiral, 8% more efficient." 8%. The Admiral set down the. "Do you understand what that means, Engineer Park?" "It means we use less fuel and get more power. It means they have been wasting their potential for thousands of years." Admiral stood and walked to her window. The stars stretched out beyond the glass, cold and endless. They are one of the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy. They have been building ships since before humans discovered fire, and yet their engineering has remained basically unchanged for centuries. "They focus on hunting," said. "Their entire culture revolves around the hunt. Engineering is just a tool to them, a means to an end." Until now. The Admiral turned back to face him. "The 7th Hunting Fleet has reported a 34% reduction in maintenance downtime. Their engine efficiency has improved across the board. Cubs are now serving as engineering assistants on every vessel." Blinked, they implemented the training program already. Is not a patient woman. She saw value in what you taught her cubs. She demanded that every ship in her fleet follow the same approach. The Admiral smiled slightly. "The High Hunt is very interested in the results." The High Hunt was the supreme governing body of the people. They set policy for the entire species. If they were paying attention to this, it was significant. "What does this mean for me?" asked carefully. "It means I am creating a new program. Human engineers paired with juveniles across 6 fleet installations. You will design the curriculum and oversee the training." His mouth fell open. "Admiral, I am a cargo shuttle engineer. I fix broken conduits. I am not qualified to create a training program." "You are the only human who has successfully taught cubs. That makes you the most qualified person in the galaxy." Admiral returned to her desk and picked up a. "I am promoting you to senior engineer, 1st class. You will have a staff of 20 human engineers and access to whatever resources you need." "Admiral, I do not think I can do this." "Engineer Park." The Admiral's voice was firm. "You saw something in those cubs that no one else has ever seen. You treated them as students, not as monsters. That is exactly what this program needs. Someone who can look past the teeth and claws and see the potential underneath." Thought about Bora and he thought about how eager they had been to learn, how quickly they had absorbed new information, how had redesigned his plasma routing in a single afternoon. They were not stupid. They were not mindless killers. They were intelligent beings with incredible potential that had never been developed. "I will try," he said finally. "Good," Admiral handed him the. "Your first class of students arrives in 2 weeks, 24 cubs from 12 different packs. personally selected them. Is involved. She insisted. She believes this program will change her people. She wants to make sure it succeeds. The Admiral paused. She also asked specifically for you to lead it. She said her cubs still talk about you. Apparently, you made quite an impression. Did not know what to say. 6 months ago, he had been a simple engineer on a cargo shuttle. Now he was being asked to help bridge the gap between two species that had viewed each other with fear and suspicion for centuries. It was terrifying, it was exciting, it was completely insane. He accepted the assignment. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation, designed lesson plans and gathered equipment. He consulted with about learning patterns. He read everything he could find about their culture and history. The cubs arrived on a transport ship that made the station's docking bay look small. They emerged in groups of 2 and 3, eyes wide with curiosity and nervousness. They ranged in age from equivalent of 8 to 14 human years. Their scales were various shades of blue and green, not yet hardened to adult black. And there at the back of the group were 3 familiar faces. Rushed forward, nearly knocking him over with an enthusiastic greeting. "We are here. We are students again." Bora and followed close behind. They had grown in the past 3 months, but they still looked at him with the same eager curiosity. "I am glad to see you," said honestly. "I was hoping you would be part of this program." Mother insisted, said. "She said we should continue what we started. She said you would need helpers who already understand your methods." Looked at the crowd of young, 24 cubs all watching him with intense attention. They were the children of hunters, raised to track and kill. But in this moment, they were just students waiting for their teacher. "Welcome to the engineering training program," said. "For the next 6 months, you will learn how starships work. You will learn to repair them, improve them, and understand them at the deepest level. Some of what I teach you will be familiar. Some of it will be completely new. I expect you to ask questions. I expect you to challenge what I say. And I expect you to help each other learn." He paused and looked at Bora and 3 of your classmates have already begun this journey. They will help guide you as you learn. Listen to them. Learn from them. They have already shown that can be excellent engineers. The cubs straightened with pride. The other young looked at them with new respect. The training began. Over the following months, taught them everything he knew. They learned about power systems and life support. They studied navigation computers and weapons arrays. They practiced repairs on old shuttles and broken equipment. The cubs exceeded every expectation. They worked together naturally, sharing knowledge and helping each other overcome difficulties. When one student struggled with a concept, the others would gather around and explain it in different ways until understanding came. Plasma routing design became the foundation of a new approach to ship engineering. The cubs learned to see systems as flowing, living things rather than static machines. They found inefficiencies and improvements that human engineers had never noticed. Reports began coming in from across the fleet. Ships were performing better than ever. Maintenance costs were dropping. Energy efficiency was rising. The program was working. And somewhere along the way, something else began to change. The fear and suspicion between humans started to fade. People who had once crossed the street to avoid were now working alongside them. Cubs who had been taught that humans were prey learned that they could also be teachers and friends. The galaxy was changing, one lesson at a time. Admiral called to her office again, 8 months after the program began. "The High Hunt has made a decision," she said. "They want to expand the program not just to cubs. They want human engineers assigned to every fleet, permanent positions, full integration." Sat down heavily. That is enormous." "It is the beginning of something new," the Admiral agreed. "Half the coalition fleet has already adopted your training methods. The other half is watching closely. If this works, it could change everything." Half the fleet. Half of all coalition vessels were now using techniques that had started with 3 curious cubs on an alien moon. "I just fixed a shuttle," said quietly. "You did much more than that," Admiral smiled. "You saw what no one else could see, and now the whole galaxy is starting to see it too. 1 year had passed since a shuttle crashed on that distant moon. The galaxy looked very different now. The Coalition flagship Unified Purpose hung in orbit above Earth, its massive hull gleaming in the sunlight. It was the largest ship ever built by the Coalition, a symbol of cooperation between a dozen different species. Today, it was hosting the first anniversary celebration of the integration program. Stood on the observation deck, looking out at the fleet gathered below. Hundreds of ships had come for the ceremony. Human vessels flew in formation alongside warships. Cargo haulers drifted near hunting cruisers. It was a sight that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. "You look nervous," a familiar voice said. He turned to find standing beside him. She had grown significantly in the past year. Her scales were darker now, shifting from soft blue toward the harder shades of approaching adulthood. But her eyes still held that same curious gleam. "I am supposed to give a speech," admitted. "I am not good at speeches." "You are good at teaching. A speech is just teaching many people at once." Smiled. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from a good teacher." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships outside. Bioluminescent frills glowed softly, casting gentle light across the deck. "I have been thinking about that first day," said quietly. "When we found your crashed shuttle, I was so curious. I had never seen a human up close before. You seemed so strange and fragile. I thought you were going to eat me." Made the purring sound that now knew was laughter. "We were cubs, we had just eaten breakfast. You were safe." "Good to know. But I remember something else from that day. You were not afraid of us. Other species run from cubs. They see what we will become and they flee, but you stayed. You answered our questions. You treated us like we mattered." "You did matter, you do matter." Frills brightened. "That is why the program worked, you know. Not because of the engineering lessons, because you saw us as more than predators. You saw us as people." Captain Han appeared in the doorway of the observation deck. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and an easy smile. She had been given command of the Unified Purpose because of her reputation for bringing different species together. "Engineer Park, Specialist, the ceremony is about to begin. Admiral is asking for you." Took a deep breath, placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. "You will be fine," she said. "Just speak from your heart. That is what you always do." They walked together to the main hall. It was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Humans sat beside. Coalition diplomats mingled with High Hunt representatives. Cubs from the training program stood proudly in their new engineering uniforms. Saw near the front, his scales now almost fully black. He had become one of the top engineers in the fleet, designing new systems that improved on everything that came before. Bora stood beside him, her ability to anticipate problems making her invaluable on any ship she served. Admiral was at the podium. She smiled when she saw approach. "Ladies and honored guests of all species," she said. 1 year ago, we began an experiment. We asked whether 2 species that had feared each other for centuries could learn to work together. Today, we have our answer." She gestured toward a large display screen. It showed statistics and images from across the fleet. The integration program has been implemented on 847 vessels. That represents roughly half of our active fleet. Maintenance efficiency has improved by 28% on average. More importantly, we have seen a complete transformation in how our species interact. The screen showed images of humans and working side by side, cubs learning from human engineers, human children visiting worlds, friendships forming across the boundaries of species. "But none of this would have been possible without one person," Admiral continued. A cargo engineer whose shuttle broke down in the wrong place at the right time. A man who saw curious children instead of dangerous predators. A teacher who gave us a new way of seeing each other. She turned to, "Engineer Park, would you say a few words?" Walked to the podium on unsteady legs. He looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces watched him, human and young and old, all waiting to hear what he would say. He thought about words, speak from the heart. "1 year ago my plasma conduit exploded," he began. "My ship crashed on an alien moon. I was alone, scared, and very far from home. Then 3 cubs walked out of the forest. They were curious about what I was doing. They wanted to learn." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I could have chased them away. I could have seen them as threats. That is what I was trained to do, but they were just children. Curious, eager, brilliant children. How could I turn them away?" He looked at Bora and in the audience. "Those 3 cubs taught me something important. They showed me that the boundaries between species are not walls. They are bridges waiting to be built. All we have to do is take the first step." The crowd was silent, listening intently. "They are hunters, that is true, but hunting is about more than killing. It is about learning, adapting, finding the best path forward. When we gave cubs the chance to learn engineering, they did not just match human abilities. They exceeded them. They found solutions we never imagined. They made our ships faster, stronger, better." He spread his hands, indicating the entire room. "Half the fleet now uses methods that started with 3 cubs and a broken shuttle. Think about that. Half of all our ships work better because we stopped being afraid and started teaching each other. Imagine what we could do if we extended that trust to everyone, to every species, to every individual who wants to learn." Look directly at thee in the audience. Your cubs are not monsters waiting to happen. They are students waiting for teachers. They are engineers waiting for tools. They are friends waiting to be made. All they need is someone willing to see them clearly. He took a deep breath. 1 year ago I fixed a shuttle, but the real repair was not to the ship. It was to the fear that kept our species apart. That repair is still ongoing. It will take years, maybe decades, to complete, but we have started. We have taken the first steps, and I believe with all my heart that we will finish the journey together." The room erupted in applause. Humans and stood together, clapping and cheering. Cubs made excited chittering sounds. Even the stern High Hunt representative seemed moved. Pushed through the crowd to reach him. The massive pack leader looked at with her face and glowing eyes. "You have done well, little human," she said. "My cubs chose wisely when they approached your crashed ship." "Your cubs chose themselves," replied. "I just showed them where to look." "Perhaps, but the looking was the important part. Many species have looked at and seen only teeth. You looked and saw minds. That made all the difference." She placed a heavy claw on his shoulder. "The High Hunt has made a decision. We are naming this approach the Park method, in your honor. Every ship will train its cubs using your techniques. Every generation from now on will learn that they can be more than hunters." Felt tears forming in his eyes. "I do not know what to say." "Say nothing, just keep teaching. Keep showing our people what they can become." Appeared beside her mother. Her frills were glowing brighter than it ever seen. "We did this together," she said. "Human and teacher and student. This is what happens when species stop fearing each other and start learning instead." Looked around the room. At the cubs in their engineering uniforms. At the human and officers talking like old friends. At the fleet visible through the windows, human and ships flying side by side. It had started with a broken plasma conduit and 3 curious children. It had become something far greater. And it was only the beginning.